We have a short week in news. First, the National Science Foundation has announced as of Wednesday that they are teaming up with basically the biggest companies in tech and Gen AI right now to launch the National Artificial Intelligence Research Pilot Program, or NAIRR. And the NAIRR is going to be a shared national infrastructure that will provide grants and funding to communities across the country with hardware, with models, with resources like compute resources, et cetera, that, as they say, are needed to advance the AI ecosystem. So it's basically like a grant system for providing greater access to the hardware, the compute resources, et cetera, required to participate in AI research and development, because small businesses, smaller research institutions just don't have the financial resources to make these kinds of leaps. So this is an effort to do so. AI resources have become concentrated, and they acknowledge that, and very difficult to access for these smaller communities with fewer financial resources, yet these communities still have plenty of talent. Things like smaller colleges, institutions, rural areas, etc. The technical wording here is that tech companies are not being paid to provide access to services. They are making in-kind contributions to those made by government agencies. A little bit of legalese there, potentially some taxation represented things. It's not entirely clear what the financial exchange is, but hopefully it's something close to one. But the government is making contributions to these large companies to do things like include support for 20 research projects by Amazon, access to Anthropic's Claude model for 10 researchers working on climate change projects, 100 compute grants from Hugging Face, datasets and benchmarks from IBM, $20 million in compute credits for Azure, $30 million in support for NVIDIA, including $24 million worth computing for the company's DGX platform. You could view this as a new system via which the government can provide grants and other things to accelerate research, particularly government interest research. This includes Department of Defense related projects, Department of Energy related projects, NASA, things. So it's like a government interest program for not only funding projects from large institutions and projects by the big tech companies, but helping smaller institutions get involved in these types of projects as well. Up next, Google has released another video editing model called Lumiere. Unfortunately, once again, this is not a model with a public endpoint. However, it certainly seems to be the biggest step forward in video editing yet. It makes pretty compelling videos, particularly when prompted with an image. You can do things like complete videos. You can tell the model to fill in the space, and it does a very good job filling in the space. You can animate images. So, for example, if you have an image of a fire, then you can say that you want to animate the region of it that's fire, and it'll output a short video, which is, I think really these videos are better described as GIFs because they come out fairly short. You can do substitutions. So you can do things like people's clothes, give something a hat, give something glasses. You can also create new kinds of entertaining scenes, like the classic teddy bear riding a surfboard. They have a panda playing a ukulele. It's certainly more compelling than previous models. The examples that they show are absolutely curated for the blog post. So they're showing really the best in class from the model because it's in their best interest to do so. And there are still artifacts, there are still tearing, there's still weird stuff happening in those images that are the absolute best producing. That tells us that standard performance is probably not quite what we're seeing in these images. From a philosophical point of view, I think that these models are very interesting for video editors and for creators that want to somehow modify something that they created. I think in terms of having a model that has like a artistic director, of sorts, and like you could just input a prompt and it spits out a 5-minute video is the epitome of content creation. Content being pieces of consumable entertainment that are designed to generate views, get engagement from users versus actually add or carry any substance. A piece of content versus a piece of art, I think, are very different things. And I think that a creator can work alongside this model to create pieces of art that are still driven by a creator's vision and still have that human element to them. I think that creating videos entirely from scratch, just based on a text prompt, that's just content. I think people want that because I think it can be monetized. And I've already seen that these fully AI created YouTube channels, like they get engagement. There's a question of how long this is actually sticking around for, right? But this is the definition of side hustle. Like if people see a money making opportunity, they jump on it. I would love to see these tools purely as creators so that they can help enhance things that they're already creating. I'm fearful of there being more and more creators who just, or not even creators, just like software. People who just start generating content to just try to monetize as possible. We'll see. Last piece of news are some new AI features that have come to Chrome or are coming to Chrome. This includes like AI writing assistant, which we've seen before, but it will be interesting to have that actually be embedded into Chrome itself. So whenever you're writing text, you can just do it right in place versus having to go jump over to your GPT tab. One thing that they are doing that I think is very clever, very creative, is using an AI-driven tab organizer. Anybody who uses a browser and uses a browser for productivity and work, they may find themselves at the end of the day working with 50 or 100 tabs, and they might never even close tabs. They might just stack up hundreds of tabs over time until their computer slows down. They're forced to close them. Organizing those tabs is a nightmare. Most people don't even bother. Most people just go ahead and open a tab rather than go back and find what they were working with before. I want to see more tools like tab organizers and less focus on creation from scratch, less focus on text completion, really flashy stuff like that. I want tools that work 99 or 100% of the time. I don't want things that are flaky that I have to make modifications to myself that I can't rely on. Consistency is key for creating a Gen AI. And that's all for this week. Thanks for tuning in.